The lease on the two-bedroom apartment at 412 Maple Street had my name on it first. I signed it in blue ink on a humid July afternoon 3 years ago, right after my promotion at the graphic design firm downtown. The place wasn't fancy, peeling paint in the hallway, a radiator that clanked like it was angry every winter, but the windows faced the park, the rent was manageable on a single income, and the quiet felt like permission to finally stop running from one short-term sublet to the next. I moved in alone with 3 suitcases, a borrowed futon, and the kind of cautious optimism that comes after too many bad roommate situations. For 2 solid years, the apartment was mine in every small, satisfying way. The bookshelves I built myself, the herb pots on the fire escape, the wall I painted sage green because the landlord said neutral beige only. Then came the email from Priya. We'd been best friends since sophomore year of college. 9 years of shared playlists, late-night study sessions, breakups dissected over cheap wine, inside jokes that still made us snort laugh in public. She'd moved to Seattle after graduation for a tech job that paid obscenely well. I stayed in our college town because the design scene here was small but kind, and I liked knowing every barista's name. We texted daily, FaceTimed weekly, sent each other ridiculous memes at 2 a.m. When she wrote that her company was doing layoffs and her lease was up, the words came out before I could second-guess them. Come stay with me until you figure things out. Couch is yours, no rent until you land something new. She arrived in mid-October with 2 enormous suitcases, a laptop bag, and the same wide smile that used to get us out of trouble in dorm security offices. We hugged in the hallway for so long the neighbor downstairs banged on his ceiling. That first night, we ordered Thai, opened a bottle of the Pinot she'd brought from the West Coast, and talked until the sky turned pink. It felt like college again. Easy, familiar, safe. She crashed on the couch. I gave her the spare key the next morning. Stay as long as you need, I said, seriously. The first month was almost perfect. Priya job hunted with ferocious focus, sending out resumes while I worked from the tiny dining table that doubled as my desk. We cooked together, her butter chicken was better than any restaurant's, watched old movies, went running in the park when the weather held. She paid for groceries without being asked, left little notes on the fridge. You're killing it today, strong arm. Folded my laundry when I left it in the dryer too long. I told myself I was lucky. Most people would kill for a friend like that. Then the small things started shifting. She began wearing my sweaters, not borrowing. Wearing. The charcoal crew neck I'd bought in Portland last winter appeared on her in Zoom calls. She said it looked better with her skin tone. My favorite mug, the one with the tiny crack I'd glued back together, moved permanently to her side of the couch. She rearranged the bookshelves to make the space flow better, putting my design annuals on the bottom shelf and her self-help titles up top. When I mentioned it, she laughed and said, "You never read them anyway." I let it go. Space was tight, compromise was part of cohabitation. By month 2, she'd landed freelance gigs, good ones, and started talking about our apartment like it had always been plural. We should repaint the bedroom, she'd say while scrolling paint swatches on her phone. That green is nice, but maybe something warmer for both of us. I corrected her once, my bedroom, and she looked genuinely hurt. I didn't mean to overstep. I just feel at home here. Guilt hit me immediately. She was jobless a few weeks ago. Of course she felt vulnerable. I dropped it. The borrowing escalated quietly. My noise-canceling headphones disappeared for days, reappearing with her Spotify still logged in. She used my expensive face serum just once, and then bought the same brand for herself. When my sister came to visit, Priya insisted on joining us for dinner and spent the whole meal telling stories about our college days, laughing at jokes I'd told her in confidence years ago. My sister raised an eyebrow at me at the table. Later, she texted, "She talks about you like you're the same person." I started noticing how often she mirrored me. Same coffee order, oat milk latte, extra shot, same running route, same brand of yoga leggings after I mentioned liking mine. When I bought a new planner, she ordered the exact same one 2 days later. Great minds, she said with a wink. I smiled, but something cold settled in my stomach. One evening in early January, I came home from a client meeting to find her at my desk, my standing desk, the one I'd saved 6 months for, typing furiously on her machine. My external monitor was hooked up to her machine, my mousepad had been moved. "Hey," she said without looking up, "hope you don't mind, my setup at the couch was killing my neck." I stood in the doorway, coat still on, keys in hand. "That's my workstation." She glanced over her shoulder. "I'll be done in 10, promise." I waited. 10 minutes became 20. When she finally closed her laptop, she stretched like a cat and said, "Thanks for sharing. We should get a second monitor so we're not fighting over yours." Then she walked past me into the kitchen and started making tea, using my favorite mug again. That night, I lay awake listening to her breathe evenly on the couch 10 feet away. The radiator clanked. Snow tapped the window. For the first time since she arrived, the apartment didn't feel like home. It felt occupied. The next morning, I sat her down at the kitchen table with coffee neither of us drank. "We need to talk about boundaries," I said. Her face changed. Surprise, then something sharper. "I thought we were past that. We're best friends." "We are, but this is my space, my things, my routine. I let you in because I wanted to help, not because I wanted to merge lives." She stared at me for a long moment. Then she laughed, a short, incredulous sound. "Merged lives? God, you make it sound so dramatic. I'm just trying to feel settled while I rebuild. You're acting like I'm stealing your identity." The word hung between us. Stealing. I didn't say it out loud yet, but the thought had already rooted itself deep. Over the next weeks, the tension thickened like fog. She stopped asking before using my things. She started leaving passive-aggressive post-its. Left you the last yogurt, thought you'd want it since you're always dieting. She began inviting mutual college friends over without checking with me, turning the living room into her personal networking lounge while I worked in my bedroom with noise-canceling headphones I had to hunt for every time. One Saturday, I came back from grocery shopping to find her wearing my new coat, the wool one I'd bought on sale after Christmas, and posing in front of the full-length mirror. "This looks better on me, don't you think?" she asked my reflection. I set the bags down slowly. "Take it off." She rolled her eyes. "Relax, I was just trying it." "Take it off." She did, tossing it on the couch like it burned her. "You've changed," she said quietly. "Ever since I got here, you've been so territorial. Maybe because you keep crossing lines. Maybe because you're scared I'll be better at your life than you are." The silence that followed was louder than any shout. That night, she went to stay with a cousin in the next city over. "I need space," she texted. "Clearly, you do too." She left most of her things behind. Suitcases still in the corner, shampoo in the shower, half her wardrobe in the closet she gradually claimed. I stared at the apartment, at my things mixed with hers, and realized how thoroughly she had settled in, not as a guest, as a replacement. I didn't cry. I cleaned. I washed every dish she'd touched, wiped down every surface, moved my books back to the top shelves. When I opened the hall closet to hang my coat, I found a small notebook tucked behind her winter boots. Curiosity, stupidity, made me open it. The pages were filled with lists. My morning routine, copied almost verbatim, my skincare steps, my go-to outfits from Instagram photos she'd saved, my client list with notes on each one. Follow up next week mentioned sustainability angle. My passwords, written in the back in her neat print. My dreams, the ones I'd whispered to her during late-night talks, listed under goals to achieve in year 1 here. At the very end, in red ink, a single line underlined twice. She doesn't deserve this life. I do. I sat on the floor with the notebook in my lap, heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my teeth. She wasn't just borrowing my sweaters, she was trying to become me, and she was almost there. The notebook stayed open on my lap for what felt like hours, though the wall clock only advanced 20 minutes. Page after page of her handwriting cataloged me in clinical detail, the exact ratio of oat milk to espresso I used every morning, the playlist I listened to while editing designs, down to track order, the affirmations I muttered under my breath before big client calls. There were screenshots printed and taped in, my latest portfolio piece from Behance, a selfie I posted on my private story that I'd set to close friends only, even a photo of the thank you note I'd handwritten to a collaborator last month. She'd annotated it. Handwriting matches mine closely enough. Practice loops on Y and G. I flipped to the back again. That single red line, "She doesn't deserve this life. I do." Stared back like an accusation turned confession. My hands shook so badly the pages rattled. I closed the notebook, slid it back behind her boots exactly as I'd found it, and sat on the hallway floor until my legs went numb. When Priya texted the next afternoon, "Can we talk? I miss our routine," I didn't answer. Instead, I changed every password she might have glimpsed. Email, bank, streaming services, even the Wi-Fi. I logged out of my Spotify on all devices and created a new account under a throwaway name. I moved my external hard drive, the one with every client file, every personal project, every backup of my life's work, to the bottom of my sock drawer under a pile of old t-shirts. Paranoia felt less like overreaction and more like survival. She showed up 2 days later with coffee and croissants from the bakery down the block, the one I always went to on Sundays. She knocked softly, called my name through the door like we were still playing house. I opened it just enough to see her face, bright, expectant, the same smile that used to make everything feel fixable. "I brought your favorite," she said, holding up the paper bag. "Almond croissant, extra flaky." I didn't step aside to let her in. "You need to get your stuff." Her smile faltered but didn't disappear. "I know I overstepped. I was stressed about the job hunt, feeling like I was failing, and I leaned on you too hard. I'm sorry. Let me make it right." "You wrote down my passwords." The words came out flat, factual. No accusation in my tone, just statement. She blinked once, twice. Then her expression shifted. Not guilt exactly, but calculation. "I only wrote them so I could help if your laptop crashed again. Remember last year when you lost that pitch deck? I was trying to be prepared. You listed my morning routine, my goals, my handwriting." She laughed, a small nervous sound. "Okay, that sounds creepy when you say it like that. I was just, admiring you. You have your shit together. I wanted to learn from it, mimic the good habits." I stared at her. "You said I don't deserve this life." Her face drained of color. It's in the notebook, red ink, underlined twice." Silence stretched thin between us. A neighbor's door opened down the hall, footsteps, then closed again. Priya's eyes flicked, left, right, anywhere but my face. "I was angry," she whispered finally, "at myself. The layoffs hit harder than I let on. I saw you here, steady job, nice apartment, friends who actually show up, and I felt like I'd been left behind. The notebook was just venting, private thoughts. I never meant for you to see it. You left it in plain sight, behind your own boots. I forgot it was there, I swear." I didn't believe her. Not anymore. Pack what you can carry today. I'll box the rest and leave it with the doorman tomorrow. You can pick it up whenever. Seriously? Her voice cracked. After 9 years, you're throwing me out over a stupid notebook? I'm asking you to leave because you've been systematically taking pieces of my life. My clothes, my routines, my friends, my space. And when I tried to set a boundary, you turned it into me being territorial. That's not friendship. That's erasure. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. You're overreacting. I was struggling. You were supposed to help me, not turn on me the second I got comfortable. Comfortable, you repeated. You mean entitled. Her jaw tightened. You always did this. Acted like your life was so precious no one else could touch it. Remember sophomore year? You wouldn't let me borrow your notes because I needed to learn it myself? Same energy. That was different. That was college. This is my home, my identity. She laughed again, sharper this time. Identity, please. You're a mid-level designer in a mid-sized city. I could do your job tomorrow and do it better. I already know your clients. I've read your emails. I know exactly how you pitch. The hallway felt colder. My pulse thrummed in my ears. Get out, I said. She didn't move. You need me here. You were lonely before I came. Admit it. I was alone. There's a difference. For a second, I thought she might cry. Instead, she straightened, shoulders squaring like she was stepping onto a stage. Fine, I'll go. But don't pretend this is about boundaries. This is about you being scared that someone else could live your life and make it look effortless. She turned, walked back to the living room, and began stuffing clothes into her suitcase with sharp, angry movements. I stood in the doorway watching, arms crossed, refusing to help or look away. When she zipped the bag, she paused at the coffee table, picked up the half-eaten croissant she'd brought, and took a deliberate bite. Still your favorite, she said, through crumbs, even if you won't admit it. Then she dragged the suitcase past me, out into the hall, and didn't look back. The door clicked shut. The apartment got silent except for the low hum of the refrigerator. I locked the deadbolt, then the chain, then I slid to the floor again, back against the wood, and let the shaking come. Not sobs, something quieter, deeper. Relief mixed with grief, mixed with fury. I stayed there until dark. When I finally stood, I went straight to the bathroom mirror. My reflection looked the same. Tired eyes, messy bun, faint line between my brows that hadn't been there a month ago. But something had shifted behind the eyes. Harder, clearer. I opened the medicine cabinet, took out the face serum she'd been using, and poured it down the sink, watched the clear liquid swirl away. Then I opened my laptop, logged into every account she might have accessed, and changed security questions, enabled two-factor on everything, even the ones that felt excessive. Next, I texted my sister. Priya's gone. Long story. Can you come over this weekend? Need backup. Her reply came fast. On my way tomorrow, bringing wine and pepper spray. You okay? Getting there. I walked to the living room, picked up the notebook from the closet, carried it to the kitchen sink, and set it to fire with a match from the junk drawer. Watched the pages curl black, the red ink disappear in flame. The smoke alarm shrieked. I waved a dish towel until it stopped. When the ashes cooled, I swept them into the trash. The apartment still smelled faintly of her perfume, something citrus and expensive she'd started wearing because I'd mentioned I liking it once. I opened every window, even though it was February and the heat was already struggling. Cold air rushed in, sharp and cleansing. I didn't sleep much that night. Instead, I sat at my desk, and opened a new document. Title, Things That Are Mine. I started listing. My name on the lease, my job title, my client relationships, my playlists, my scars from childhood bike accidents, my laugh that starts quiet and ends loud, my dreams that no one else gets to rewrite. By dawn, the list was 3 pages long. I printed it, taped it inside my closet door where I'd see it every morning. Priya didn't text again. Mutual friends asked careful questions. I gave vague answers. She moved on to something new. No one pushed. But I knew she wasn't gone. Not really. She had my routines memorized, my pitch style, my email tone. Somewhere out there, she was probably already practicing my signature in a mirror, adjusting her posture to match mine, telling new people the stories I used to tell her. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, it made me angry in a clean, useful way. Because if she wanted to try on my life like a coat, she was about to learn it didn't fit the way she thought. And when the seams started splitting, I'd be ready to speak the truth. Loudly, publicly, without apology. The apartment felt too quiet after Priya left. The kind of quiet that presses against your eardrums instead of filling them. I kept expecting her footsteps in the hallway, her laugh cutting through the wall from the living room, the clink of her spoon against her favorite mug. But there was only the radiator's occasional groan and the distant hum of traffic on Maple Street. I spent the first full day alone, scrubbing every surface she'd touched. The kitchen counters where she'd chopped onions for her famous doll, the bathroom sink where traces of her citrus perfume still clung to the faucet, the couch cushions that still held the faint imprint of her body. I vacuumed under the couch and found one of her earrings. Small gold hoop, the pair she wore when we went out for drinks. I stared at it in my palm, then dropped it into the trash with the rest of the ashes from the notebook. By evening, I'd reclaimed most of the physical space, but the mental one felt mined. Every habit she'd mirrored now felt tainted. When I reached for my oat milk latte ingredients the next morning, I hesitated. Did she really like oat milk, or had she adopted it because I did? When I opened Spotify, the algorithm suggested the exact running playlist I'd used last week. I deleted the account entirely and started fresh. I changed my route through the park, avoiding the loop where we used to wave at the same dog walker every Tuesday. Small acts of amputation, each one painful but necessary. Work became my anchor. I threw myself into client revisions, stayed late at the office instead of bringing projects home. My boss noticed. "You're on fire lately," she said during our weekly check-in. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." I smiled tightly and said nothing about the woman who tried to wear my career like a second skin. 3 days after Priya left, the first text arrived from a mutual friend, Aisha. "Hey, saw Priya last night at that new rooftop bar downtown. She was telling everyone she's been freelancing with your clients. Said you two are collaborating now. Everything okay?" My stomach dropped. I hadn't told Aisha, or anyone, the full story yet. I typed back carefully. "We're not collaborating. She's not working with my clients. Can you send me a screenshot if she posts anything?" Aisha replied with 3 dots, then a photo, Priya at the bar, glass in hand, smiling wide for the camera. Caption on her Instagram story, which she'd set to public, something she'd never done before. "New chapter, same hustle. Grateful for the connections that make it all possible. Computer / sparkly eyes. Hashtag freelance life, hashtag design dreams." The story expired before I could save it, but the damage was already spreading. By the next morning, 2 more friends texted variations of the same question. "Priya said she's taking over some of your overflow work. Congrats on growing your network." I opened my email. Nothing unusual. No client complaints, no confused forwards. But when I checked my portfolio site analytics, there was a small spike in traffic from a referral link I didn't recognize. Clicking through led to a Behance profile under Priya K Designs, her name, but the banner image was a cropped version of my latest project mockup. The About section read, "Multidisciplinary designer with 9+ years of experience in branding, UI/UX, and digital illustration. Passionate about clean, user-centered solutions. Currently collaborating with top regional clients on sustainable campaigns." 9 years? She'd added my college graduation date to her timeline. I sat at my desk staring at the screen until my eyes burned. Then I screenshotted everything, saved the pages as PDFs, and started drafting an email to Behance support. Copyright infringement, unauthorized use of images, identity misrepresentation. Before hitting send, I paused. Confronting her publicly would escalate things. She wanted attention. She wanted the drama of being the wronged party. I wouldn't give her that stage yet. Instead, I called my sister, who'd arrived the previous weekend and was still sleeping on my couch because she refused to leave until the crazy was fully evicted. She listened to the story, face darkening with every detail. When she finished, she said, "She's not just copying you. She's trying to replace you, digitally, socially, professionally." I know. You have to warn your clients, quietly, before she reaches out to them pretending to be you. I spent the afternoon composing careful messages. To my 5 biggest ongoing clients, I wrote variations of the same thing. "Hi, name. Just a quick heads up, I recently ended a living arrangement with a former friend who has since misrepresented our professional relationship online. She may reach out claiming affiliation or collaboration. Any communication from Priya K Designs or similar is not authorized by me. Please let me know if you hear from her. I'd appreciate the chance to clarify directly." Most replied within hours. Confusion, then support. One client, the sustainability nonprofit I'd been working with for 18 months, called immediately. "Is this the woman who emailed me yesterday saying she was your new project lead?" My blood went cold. What did she say? "She introduced herself as your partner, said you were swamped, and she'd be handling revisions on the annual report. Sent over a few sample decks that looked familiar. I thought it was odd you hadn't mentioned it." I thanked the client, assured her I'd handle it, and spent the rest of the day documenting. Timestamps on my original files, email trails, screenshots of Priya's profile. When my sister saw the decks, she swore under her breath. "This isn't just admiration anymore. This is fraud." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept refreshing her socials. New profile picture, hairstyled the way I wore mine last fall. New bio, Seattle transplant thriving in our city. New story, coffee cup from my favorite cafe. Caption, "Fuel for the takeover." She tagged the location. She knew I'd see it. Around 2 a.m., I opened a blank document and started writing what I'd been avoiding. A public statement. Not an attack, just facts. To anyone who's been contacted by Priya K regarding design work, I am the sole proprietor of my business name. Priya and I were roommates briefly. We are not professional partners. She does not have permission to represent my work, clients, or brand. If you've received proposals or files from her claiming connection to me, please disregard and contact me directly. I saved it as a draft, posted nothing yet, but the draft existed, waiting. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a new email. Subject, "We should talk." From Priya. Body, "I know you're upset, I get it, but you're blowing this out of proportion. I only reached out to a couple clients as a favor. Thought I could lighten your load while I built my own thing. No harm meant. Let's meet for coffee. Clear the air. We've been through too much to end this way." I stared at the words until they blurred. Then I replied with one line. "No, and stop contacting my clients." I blocked her email, her number, her socials, every platform. Every mutual connection I could think of got a quiet heads up. If she asks, I'm not available. But I knew she wouldn't stop. People like her don't stop when asked politely. They stop when the cost becomes too high. So I opened the draft statement again. This time I added dates, links, evidence summaries, made it bulletproof, professional, unemotional. I hit post on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, everywhere my professional life lived. Within an hour, the comments started. Support from colleagues, questions from acquaintances, a few like, wait, what messages from mutual friends. And then, inevitably, Priya's response appeared in my DMs from a new account. You really want to do this publicly? Fine. Two can play. Attached was a photo, me and her from college, arms around each other, smiling. Caption she'd already drafted somewhere. Best friend for 9 years. Now she's trying to erase me because I dared to succeed in the same field. Hurt, but not surprised. The war had started, and I was finally ready to fight it. The moment I hit publish on the LinkedIn post, the apartment felt smaller, as though the walls themselves were leaning in to watch what happened next. The statement was concise, factual, stripped of emotion. Dates of our cohabitation, screenshots of her Behance profile with my cropped work, forwarded email chains where she'd introduced herself as my project partner, bullet points listing the unauthorized client contacts, and a clear disclaimer that any future representation by Priya K Designs was fraudulent and not affiliated with me. I included no personal attacks, no mention of the notebook or the red-inked confession. Those felt too raw, too private to weaponize in public. I simply laid out the timeline and let the evidence speak. Within minutes, notifications began pinging. Likes from colleagues I barely knew. Comments from designers in other cities offering solidarity. A few, "this is wild," reactions from mutual friends who had no idea the riff had gone this far. My sister, still camped on the couch with her laptop open, refreshed the post every 30 seconds and read comments aloud in a running commentary that oscillated between outrage and dark humor. Someone just called her a digital doppelganger. Accurate. Another person said you should sue for identity theft. Tempting. I didn't respond to anything yet. I watched the view count climb instead. 50, 200, 500, and felt a strange mix of vindication and nausea. This wasn't revenge, it was defense. But defense in public always looks aggressive to someone. Priya's counterpost appeared less than an hour later, cross-posted to Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn from her new account. The photo she used was the one from college, us at a dorm party, arms slung around each other, both laughing with the kind of abandon that only exists before life teaches you caution. Her caption was longer, more narrative. 9 years of friendship, countless late nights, shared dreams, honest tears. I moved across the country to rebuild after losing my job, stayed with my best friend because she offered. I admired her work so much I wanted to learn from it, collaborate, grow together. Instead, I was accused of stealing her life. My profile got reported, clients warned against me, my reputation shredded in a single post. If supporting a friend through hardship makes me the villain, then I don't know what friendship means anymore. Hurt doesn't begin to cover it. Grateful for those who've reached out privately. The rest, I'll let my work speak. She attached a carousel of images, more of my designs, slightly altered, now rebranded as hers. A screenshot of our old group chat where I'd once said, "You'd kill it in design too." Even a photo of the apartment living room with her suitcase in the corner, captioned, "The place that felt like home until it didn't." The comments flooded in fast. Sympathy from people who only knew her side. Questions from others who smelled drama. A few both sides takes that made my stomach turn. Mutual friends began tagging me in her post, asking if I wanted to clarify. I didn't. Not yet. By evening, the story had legs. A local creative Slack group I belonged to started a thread about it. Someone screenshotted both posts and asked, "Anyone know these two?" A design subreddit picked it up under a vague title, "Freelancer accuses roommate of identity theft. Thoughts?" And the comments spiraled into speculation. Classic case of copycat syndrome. OP sounds paranoid. Both seem unhinged. Run. My inbox filled with messages, some supportive, some accusatory, a handful from clients double-checking that I was still me. One longtime collaborator wrote simply, "Saw the noise. Still working with you. Let me know if you need anything." That one made my eyes sting. I closed my laptop, walked to the kitchen, and poured a glass of water just to have something to hold. My sister found me there, staring at the sink. "You okay?" she asked. I shook my head. I thought putting it out there would feel like winning. It just feels exposed. She hugged me from behind. "It's war now, but you didn't start it. She did when she sent those decks to your clients." The next morning brought escalation. Priya had gone live on Instagram, hair styled exactly like mine used to be last winter, background a neutral wall that could have been anywhere. She spoke softly, eyes glistening on cue. "I never wanted this to be public. I just wanted to heal and build something of my own. But when someone you trust turns on you, shares private pain for clout, it forces your hand. I'm not perfect. I overstepped boundaries while I was hurting, but I never stole. I was inspired. There's a difference." She paused, wiped a tear. "If you're watching this, I'm sorry for whatever pain I caused. I hope we can both move on." The live ended with her thanking supporters and promising new work soon. Views climbed into the thousands, shares multiplied, hashtags appeared, hashtag friendship betrayal, hashtag design drama, even hashtag copycatgate. My phone vibrated nonstop. I turned it off, sat on the floor beside the couch, and breathed through the panic that clawed at my throat. When I turned the phone back on that afternoon, there were voicemails, 2 from numbers I didn't recognize. The first was a reporter from a small online creative publication. "We're covering the situation between you and Priya. Would love your side for balance." The second was quieter, almost hesitant, a woman's voice I vaguely remembered from college. "Hey, it's Maya. We had that illustration class together. I saw the posts. Priya reached out to me last week asking for advice on breaking into the local scene. She mentioned you by name, said you two were tight. I didn't think much of it until now. Just be careful. She asked for your contact info even though she already had it. Felt off." I saved the voicemail, added it to the growing folder of evidence. Screenshots, forwards, recordings. My sister suggested we consult a lawyer. Not to sue yet, just to know what your options are if she keeps this up. I agreed. We found someone who specialized in intellectual property and digital misrepresentation. The initial consultation was free. She listened to the story, reviewed the documents I compiled, and said 3 words that settled like lead in my chest. "This is textbook stalking with intent to impersonate." That night, I couldn't sleep again. I lay in the dark listening to the city outside, car horns, distant sirens, the low murmur of neighbors through the walls, and thought about the girl I'd met freshman year. The one who'd stayed up with me when my first college boyfriend ghosted, who'd driven 4 hours to bring me soup when I had the flu sophomore spring. That girl felt like a stranger now, replaced by someone who saw my life as a template she could improve upon. I didn't hate her, not yet. Hate required energy I didn't have. But I no longer pitied her either. Pity had died somewhere between the notebook and the live stream. The next day, I posted an update. Short, calm, linking back to the original statement. "Thank you for the support and messages. For clarity, I have not spoken to Priya since she left my apartment. I have not granted interviews. Any claims otherwise are false. I'm focusing on my work and my clients. Grateful to those standing by me." No more details on camera, just boundaries redrawn in public ink. Comments poured in again. More support this time, fewer both sides. A few designers shared their own stories of copycats in the industry. One wrote, "Had a friend do this to me last year. Document everything. It gets worse before it gets better." I saved that one too. Priya went quiet online for 48 hours. No stories, no posts, no lives. I almost hoped she'd stopped. Then the email arrived, from an unfamiliar address, but with the subject line I recognized instantly. "We should talk. For real this time." I didn't open it. I forwarded it to the lawyer instead. Because the truth was no longer just mine to carry quietly. It was out in the open now, jagged and bright, and I was done letting her rewrite it. The lawyer's office sat on the 3rd floor of a nondescript building downtown, the kind of place that smelled faintly of old coffee and fresh printer ink, with framed diplomas on the wall that looked slightly crooked under fluorescent light. Her name was Nadia Reyes. Mid-40s, dark hair pulled into a neat bun, voice calm and measured like someone who had seen worse messes than this one and still made it to the other side. I sat across from her in a leather chair that creaked when I shifted, my sister beside me taking notes on her phone even though Nadia had already said recording wasn't necessary. I handed over the folder I'd compiled, printouts of Priya's Behance profile, the forwarded client emails, screenshots of her Instagram live, the voicemail from Maya, timestamps on my original design files versus the altered decks she'd sent out. Nadia flipped through slowly, nodding at intervals, asking precise questions. When exactly did Priya first access your workstation? Did you ever give her login credentials verbally or in writing? Have you received any cease and desist threats from her side yet? No, I said to the last one. Not yet. Nadia closed the folder and leaned back. "This isn't just plagiarism or bad friendship," she said. "It's impersonation with commercial intent. She's using your name, your work, your client relationships to generate income or credibility. That crosses into civil fraud territory, potentially trademark dilution if your business name is registered, and in extreme cases, could touch on identity theft statutes, depending on how far she pushes." She paused, letting that sink in. "You have strong documentation. That's your biggest asset right now. The public posts help too. They establish a timeline and show you acted in good faith to correct misrepresentations." My sister leaned forward. "So what are our options? Can we sue for damages? Get an injunction to make her take everything down?" Nadia nodded. "We can start with a cease and desist letter. Formal, on letterhead, demanding she remove all references to your name, work, or implied partnership from her profiles, refrain from contacting your clients, and destroy any copies of your files she may have. Most people back off when they see real legal muscle. If she doesn't, we escalate to a civil suit for damages, lost business if any clients defected, emotional distress, legal fees. We could also report the impersonation to platforms. Behance and LinkedIn take that seriously when evidence is clear." I asked the question that had kept me awake the previous 3 nights. What if she doubles down, goes more public, starts a GoFundMe or something claiming I'm ruining her life? Nadia's expression didn't change. Then, we counter publicly with facts only. No mudslinging. We let the evidence speak. Juries and judges, and frankly, the court of public opinion, respond better to calm, documented truth than emotional appeals. But right now, she's testing boundaries. The cease and desist is the line in the sand. Send it and see how she reacts. We left the office with a plan. Nadia would draft the letter that week. I would gather any additional proof of financial impact, even small freelance losses counted. And in the meantime, I would continue documenting quietly. No more public posts unless absolutely necessary. The drive home felt different. Not lighter, exactly, but steadier. I had language for what was happening now. It wasn't drama or friendship fallout. It was a pattern of behavior with legal weight. That made the anger feel less chaotic, more like fuel. Back at the apartment, I found an unmarked envelope slipped under the door. No stamp, no address, just my first name in familiar, neat handwriting. My sister saw my face and immediately stepped in front of me. Don't open it here. Let's take it to the kitchen. We slid it onto the counter with a butter knife, careful not to touch it directly. Inside was a single sheet of printer paper, folded once. You think a lawyer scares me? I know things about you no one else does. The real reason you left that last job. The panic attack you hid from everyone senior year. The night you cried in my arms because you thought you'd never make it as a designer. I could tell those stories too, publicly, with proof. Walk this back. Delete your post. Let me keep the clients I've earned. We can both win here, or neither of us does. No signature. Didn't need one. My sister's jaw clenched so hard I heard her teeth click. This is blackmail. Literal blackmail. I stared at the paper until the words blurred. Those memories weren't just private. They were the soft underbelly I'd only ever shown Priya because I trusted her completely. The job I'd left after a toxic creative director, the panic attack in the library bathroom during finals, the night I'd sobbed about imposter syndrome while she held me and promised I was enough. She'd weaponized them now. Not subtly, directly. I didn't cry. I felt something colder settle in my chest instead. Call Nadia, I told my sister. Add this to the file. While she dialed, I photographed the note from multiple angles, then sealed it in a plastic bag like a crime scene evidence. When Nadia answered, she listened without interruption, then said 3 words that felt like armor. We expedite the letter. The cease and desist went out 2 days later. Certified mail to the last known address she'd given, the cousin's place in the next city, and email copies to every account we could find. 24 hours of silence followed. Then the storm broke again. Priya posted a new Instagram story. Black background, white text. Received legal threats today for supporting my friend during her hardest time. Apparently kindness is a crime now. I won't be silenced. My story is mine to tell. She followed it with a carousel of old photos. Us at graduation, us on a road trip, us laughing at some forgotten party, each captioned with snippets of our shared history twisted just enough to paint me as the ungrateful one. Comments exploded. This is heartbreaking. Lawyers over friendship? Cold. Girl, stand up. But others pushed back. Wait, didn't she already admit to using her friend's work? This feels manipulative. The split was visible now, public opinion fracturing along lines of evidence versus emotion. I didn't respond online. Instead, I emailed my biggest clients again, this time attaching the cease and desist, redacted slightly for privacy, and a brief note. For your records, the matter is being handled legally. Thank you for your continued trust. Most wrote back with variations of, we're with you, or let us know if you need references. One forwarded an email Priya had said that morning, an apology for any confusion, an offer to continue work at a discounted rate, and a subtle dig. I understand tensions are high, but business is business. That night, I sat at my desk, my workstation reclaimed, and opened a new project file. Not client work, personal. A series of illustrations. I'd been too scared to start before. Abstract pieces about identity, about shadows that grow longer than the person casting them, about mirrors that reflect someone else's face. I worked until dawn, music loud enough to drown out the echo of Priya's voice in my head. When the sun rose, I saved the files, titled the folder What Remains Mine, and felt, for the first time in weeks, like the apartment was truly mine again. Priya's silence after the story didn't last. 2 days later, she emailed from yet another address. You win this round. I'm deleting the profile. But don't think this is over. You took everything from me. One day, you'll see what that feels like. I forwarded it to Nadia without replying. The lawyer called the next morning. She's complying, for now. Behance took her page down after our report. LinkedIn flagged her account for review. Clients are backing away. But keep documenting. People like this rarely stop cold. They pivot. I thanked her, hung up, and walked to the window. Snow had started again, soft flakes catching the streetlights below. The park across the street looked peaceful, untouched. I opened my sketchbook and drew the view, not as it was, but as it felt. A quiet reclaiming, one line at a time. The fight wasn't finished, but the ground under me felt solid again. And that was enough to keep drawing. The cease and desist letter arrived at Priya's cousin's address on a Thursday. The tracking confirmation came to my email at 10:47 a.m. I stared at the delivered status for a full minute before closing the tab and going back to the illustration I'd been working on. A shadowed figure standing before a cracked mirror, one half reflecting her own face, the other half showing someone else's smile stretched too wide. I hadn't heard from Priya since her last email threat, and the silence felt heavier than her words ever had. My sister suggested we celebrate the small victory with takeout and bad reality TV. I agreed, mostly because refusing would have required explaining why victory tasted like ash. We ate pad thai on the couch, laughed at contestants arguing over nothing, but every time my phone buzzed, I flinched. No new messages from unknown numbers, no fresh stories on her profiles, just quiet. Friday morning brought the first sign she was complying. Her Behance profile, already flagged, vanished completely. LinkedIn showed account under review when I searched her name. Instagram stories stayed blank for 24 hours straight. I refreshed obsessively at first, then forced myself to stop. Nadia called that afternoon with an update. Platforms are moving fast on the impersonation reports. She's deleted or privatized most public references to you. No new client outreach that we can see. This is the part where most people fold. I asked what came next. Monitor, she said, and breathe. You've drawn the hardest line. Now you protect your peace while we wait to see if she crosses it again. Peace proved elusive. The apartment still carried echoes. The faint citrus ghost of her perfume in the hallway closet, the way the couch sagged slightly more on her old side, the single gold hoop earring I'd missed in the first cleanup now glinting under the bathroom light like a taunt. I threw it out, scrubbed the closet shelves with bleach until my hands stung, rearranged the furniture so the living room faced a different wall. Small rituals of erasure. My sister helped without comment, moving books back to their original shelves, rehanging the framed print I'd taken down when Priya rearranged everything for flow. By Sunday, the space looked like mine again. Sage walls, my books dominant, my playlists filling the speakers. I sat at my desk and opened the personal illustration series. 5 pieces now, each one sharper than the last. I titled the folder Reclamation and exported low-res previews to my private portfolio. Not for clients, for me. Monday arrived with snow heavier than the week before, blanketing Maple Street in white that muffled every sound. I worked from home, client revisions flowing easier than they had in weeks. Around noon, my phone lit up with a notification from a design forum I rarely checked anymore, a private message from an anonymous account. The username was random numbers and letters, the message short. Saw the drama. She contacted me last month offering to collaborate on a project I'd posted about, used your name as a reference. I said no because it felt off. Just thought you should know. She's still emailing people, different address every time. Attached was a forwarded email chain, Priya introducing herself as Priya K, freelance designer partnering with my name on select projects, attaching one of my altered decks, offering services at introductory rates. The recipient had replied politely declining. I screenshotted everything, forwarded to Nadia, then sat back and exhaled slowly. Nadia responded within an hour. This violates the cease and desist. We can file for contempt if she persists, but first we send a follow-up letter reminding her of the terms and noting new violations. Costly for her if we go to court. I asked if we should go public again. Not yet, she advised. Let the legal pressure do the talking. Public escalation favors her narrative. She plays victim better than you play aggressor. I took her advice. No new posts. Instead, I focused on what I could control. Finishing client work early, starting a small side series of prints based on the Reclamation illustrations, reaching out to a few old collaborators I'd neglected during the chaos. Responses came back warm, relieved. Missed working with you. Heard about the mess. Glad you're okay. The support felt like ballast, steadying me against the quiet fear that Priya would surface, bigger, louder, with more twisted versions of our shared history. She did resurface, but not the way I expected. 2 weeks after the first follow-up letter, an email landed in my inbox from a generic Gmail address. Subject, no more games. Body, blank except for one attachment, a PDF titled truth.pdf. I didn't open it on my main computer, transferred it to an old laptop I kept offline, scanned it first, then viewed in a sandboxed viewer. 20 pages. Screenshots of our old texts, some real, some cropped to remove context, photos of us together, excerpts from conversations where I'd vented insecurities, even a photo of the notebook page with the red lines circled in red again. The document narrated her version. Loyal friend offering help, betrayed by paranoia, silenced by lawyers, career destroyed. It ended with a single sentence. If you drop everything, I disappear. If not, this goes everywhere. Reddit, TikTok, every design group I can find. I felt the old panic rise, then recede just as fast. This wasn't new evidence, it was escalation born of desperation. I forwarded the PDF to Nadia, unopened on my end, then called her. She listened, asked for details, then said the words I'd been waiting to hear. This is extortion. Clear criminal threshold in this jurisdiction. We can report to police now or use it to strengthen a civil suit. Either way, she's crossed into territory where consequences have teeth. We chose both. Nadia prepared a police report for cyber extortion and harassment. I provided every piece of documentation we had. The detective assigned, calm, middle-aged, voice like worn gravel, took my statement over video call, asked sharp questions, nodded at the timeline. We'll reach out to her, he said. Formal warning at minimum, charges if she keeps pushing. He warned me she might lash out harder when cornered. I told him I was ready. The next 48 hours were tense silence. No new emails, no anonymous messages. Then late on a Thursday night, my phone buzzed with one final message from a blocked number I recognized as hers. You win. I'm done. Deleting everything. Don't look for me. I didn't reply. Didn't need to. The next morning, her socials were gone. Profiles deactivated, stories vanished, old posts scrubbed. Mutual friends stopped asking questions. The drama thread on the subreddit fizzled into speculation without fuel. Clients wrote to confirm they'd heard nothing more from her. Nadia confirmed the police had made contact, no charges yet, but a paper trail existed now. Priya had pivoted one last time, from aggressor to ghost. I stood at the window watching snow melt under weak February sun, the park across the street emerging green in patches. The apartment smelled like coffee and clean laundry, my playlists playing softly. I opened my sketchbook to a new page and began drawing again. Not shadows this time, but light breaking through cracks, a figure stepping forward instead of away. She was gone. Not erased from memory, she'd lived there forever, a scar shaped like friendship, but gone from my daily life, my work, my space. And in the quiet she left behind, I finally heard my own voice again. Clear, steady, mine. Spring came to Maple Street slowly that year. The kind of gradual thaw where one day the snow is gone, and the next the park across the street is suddenly dotted with crocuses pushing through wet earth like small purple promises. The apartment windows stayed open most afternoons now, letting in the smell of damp soil and distant grill smoke from someone's rooftop barbecue. I had stopped refreshing Priya's old profiles months ago. They remained deactivated, ghosts in the digital ether, but the habit of vigilance lingered, a low hum in the back of my mind that only quieted when I was drawing or running or cooking something complicated just for myself. My sister had gone back to her own city after 6 weeks of sleeping on my couch, but she still texted every few days with memes and check-ins. Any new doppelgangers? I always answered the same. None that I've spotted, yet. The joke had lost its edge over time, turning into something almost affectionate, a shorthand for the fact that we had survived the worst of it together. Work stabilized first. Clients returned to normal rhythm after the initial wave of awkward questions dried up. The sustainability nonprofit sent a contract renewal with a small bonus for sticking it out, which I used to buy a second monitor so no one would ever need to borrow mine again. I finished the Reclamation series, 10 pieces now, and quietly submitted them to a local gallery's open call. They accepted 3 for a group show titled Echoes and Edges. Opening night was small, dimly lit with wine in plastic cups and people milling around in black turtlenecks. My pieces hung on the far wall, layered abstractions of fractured reflections, light bleeding through cracks, a single figure stepping out of shadow into something brighter. A few strangers asked about the inspiration. I said, "Someone tried to wear my life. I decided to take it back." They nodded thoughtfully, as though I'd said something profound instead of raw. One woman bought the largest piece on the spot. The check arrived 2 weeks later. I framed it beside my desk like a trophy. Nadia called once a month for the first quarter after the police contact, then less frequently. No new violations, she reported each time. She's gone quiet, probably moved cities, changed names online, started over somewhere else. I asked if that worried me. Nadia paused. It should. People like her don't change patterns, they change targets. Keep your security tight, but don't live looking over your shoulder. You've already won the part that matters. She can't touch your work or your piece anymore. I took her advice literally. I upgraded my passwords to long, random strings, enabled passkeys everywhere possible, set my social profiles to private again, and stopped sharing location tags. Small fortifications. Not paranoia. Preparedness. The quiet storm, the one that followed the loud one, settled into routine. Mornings, coffee with oat milk, still my preference, not borrowed. Sketchbook open on the kitchen table while the city woke up. Afternoons, client calls, revisions, the satisfying click of sending final files. Evenings, runs through the park on the longer loop I'd claimed back, headphones in, playlist mine alone. Weekends, gallery visits, coffee with new friends from the design community who'd reached out after the posts, people who wanted to collaborate without merging identities. I dated casually for the first time in years, a barista who made terrible latte art but excellent conversation, a software engineer who laughed at my jokes without trying to one-up them. Nothing serious yet. I wasn't ready to share space again. Not fully. One Tuesday in late April, I came home from a client meeting to find a small package on my doormat. No return address, plain brown paper, my name typed in a label. My pulse jumped the old familiar way. I carried it to the kitchen, set it on the counter, and stared at it like it might explode. After 10 minutes of internal debate, I opened it with scissors, keeping distance. Inside was a single item, my old charcoal crew neck sweater, the one she'd worn so often it had started smelling like her citrus perfume instead of mine, folded neatly. No note. Just the sweater, washed and pressed, smelling faintly of laundry detergent, and nothing else. I stood there holding it, fabric soft between my fingers. For a second, the apartment tilted, the radiator clank, the park view, the quiet, and I felt the full weight of everything she'd taken and everything I'd reclaimed. Then I walked to the trash chute in the hallway, opened it, and dropped the sweater in without looking back. The door clanged shut behind it. That night, I opened my sketchbook to a blank page and drew the sweater from memory, sleeves folded, collar neat, shadows pooling underneath like spilled ink. I titled it Returned and added it to the reclamation folder. The next morning, I emailed the gallery curator asking if they'd consider one more piece for the show. They said yes. Summer arrived, humid and loud. The park filled with picnics, kids on scooters, dogs chasing frisbees. I ran earlier now, before the heat, and sometimes waved at the same dog walker I used to avoid. He waved back, no recognition, just neighborly acknowledgement. My life had shrunk during the worst months, contracted around survival. Now it expanded again, slowly, deliberately. I hosted a small dinner for the collaborators who'd stood by me. Takeout Thai, too much wine, stories that didn't revolve around Priya for the first time in a year. Laughter came easier. So did silence. One evening in July, I sat on the fire escape with a sketch pad, drawing the skyline as the sun dipped behind buildings. My phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost deleted it unread. Then I opened it. Hey, it's Maya from college. Saw your gallery show online. The pieces are stunning. Really proud of you. If you ever want to grab coffee, no pressure. Just glad you're okay. I stared at the message a long time. Then I typed back, thanks. Coffee sounds good. Name the place. We met the next week at the bakery down the block, the one with the almond croissants. Maya looked the same. Curly hair, warm eyes, easy smile. We talked for 2 hours. Old professors, new jobs, the way life bends without warning. She didn't ask about Priya. I didn't bring her up. When we hugged goodbye, she said, "You look lighter." I believed her. Back home, I opened the sketchbook to the last page of Reclamation. The figure in the drawing no longer stepped out of shadow. She stood in full light, mirror behind her whole and clear, reflecting only her own face. I signed the piece, dated it, and closed the book. The apartment smelled of coffee and summer air. The radiator was silent until next winter. The park glowed green through the windows. Priya was a memory now, sharp but distant. A chapter closed. Not erased, just finished. And the next one was mine to write. Alone. Unborrowed. Unmirrored. Entirely my own. By the time Autumn returned to Maple Street the following year, the apartment had become something quieter, more solid, like a house that had finally learned to stand on its own foundation after years of shifting tenants. The sage green wall still held, though I'd repainted one small section where a water stain had crept in over the winter. The bookshelves stayed arranged the way I liked them. Design annuals on top, novels below, no alphabetical order, just instinct. The fire escape remained my evening perch, sketchpad in hand, watching leaves turn gold and drift past the park's iron fence. I no longer flinched at unexpected knocks or unmarked packages. The vigilance had softened into awareness, the way a scar stops aching but remains visible under certain light. The gallery show had closed months earlier, but 2 of the reclamation pieces sold, and the third found a home on my own wall, the one of the figure stepping fully into light, mirror unbroken behind her. I passed it every morning on my way to the kitchen and felt something settle deeper each time. Not pride, exactly, but recognition. This was the life I had defended. This was the space I had reclaimed. No borrowed sweaters hung in the closet, no second monitor sat unused. The desk remained mine alone, external hard drive locked in a drawer, passwords changed so many times they existed only in my head now. Work had grown in unexpected directions. The sustainability nonprofit offered me a longer-term contract. I took it, then negotiated remote flexibility so I could travel once a quarter. I spent a week in Portland that summer, sketching bridges and rain-slicked streets, drinking coffee that tasted nothing like the oat milk lattes I used to obsess over. I met other designers at a small conference. Real conversations, no mirroring, no subtle competition. One woman asked about my series. I told her the short version. A friend tried to become me. I decided to become more myself instead. She laughed and said, "That's the best revenge plot I've heard all year." It didn't feel like revenge anymore. It felt like evolution. Maya and I kept meeting for coffee every few weeks. She became a steady presence, someone who knew the old stories without needing to revisit them constantly. We talked about art, bad dates, the way the city changed block by block. She never pried about Priya. When I mentioned the sweater that had arrived in the mail, she simply said, "Some people need the last word. You gave yourself the last chapter." I liked that framing. It made the silence after Priya's final message feel like closure rather than waiting. One crisp October afternoon, I came home to find another envelope under the door, this one thicker, postmarked from Seattle. My heart gave the old familiar thud, but I opened it in the kitchen with steady hands. Inside was a single sheet of plain paper. No perfume, no flourish. "I'm not coming back. Not to your city, not to your life. I moved to a new coast. New name online, new everything. Therapy helps. Boundaries help more. I'm sorry for the notebook, the clients, the threats, the way I tried to rewrite us so I could feel like I mattered. You mattered. I just couldn't see it then. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed to say it once, without asking for anything in return. Take care of the apartment. It always suited you better." No signature, just those words, typed in a font I didn't recognize. I read it twice, then folded the paper and slid it into the back of my sketchbook, between the final reclamation drawing and a blank page. I didn't burn it, I didn't frame it, I simply let it exist. Proof that even the sharpest chapters can end without fresh cuts. That night, I hosted a small gathering. Maya, my sister, who'd flown in for the weekend, 2 new collaborators from the conference, and the barista who'd become a friend more than anything else. We ate takeout Thai on the living room floor because the table was covered in sketches, drank too much wine, laughed until the neighbors banged on the ceiling. No one asked about the past year's drama. They didn't need to. The apartment told its own story. Warm light, full shelves, music playing softly. People who came because they wanted to, not because they needed to borrow anything. When everyone left, I stood on the fire escape again, sketchpad open to that blank page. I drew the skyline as it looked now. Same buildings, same park, but the lines felt different, lighter, less shadowed. I added a small figure on a distant rooftop, arms open, facing the city instead of away from it. No mirror this time, just open air. The next morning, I woke early, made coffee the way I liked it, no one else's preference influencing the pour, and sat at my desk. A new client brief waited in my inbox, branding for a small gallery opening its doors downtown. The project description ended with a single line. "We want something authentic. No copies, just real." I smiled at the screen, then I started sketching. The apartment on Maple Street stayed quiet most days now. The radiator still clanked in winter, the park still filled with dogs and kids and runners. I still waved at the dog walker sometimes, still bought almond croissants on Sundays, still changed my routes when the mood struck. But the space belonged to me completely. No echoes lingered in the corners, no shadows wore my face, just light coming through the windows, steady and unborrowed. And the door, always unlocked for the right people, remained open, not to anyone who wanted to move in, only to those who knew how to leave footprints instead of trying to fill my shoes. I closed the sketchbook on that final drawing, set it on the shelf beside the others, and stepped into the day. The life was mine. Fully. Finally. Forever.